Lochani Bandwana Bikosi, and welcome to yet another vlog on So Bees Hive. On this one, I will be taking you along to a school excursion that I went on to the Constitution Hill. We started off at the number 4 prison, which is the prison where black males were kept. The likes of Robert Sobukwe, most of them were freedom fighters and activists during the time of apartheid, and what an experience it was.
We all have something to add to it. Just by being here today, we are helping to build the Constitution Hill. We are adding another layer to South Africa's extraordinary history to be discovered by the generations to come.
And so our tour officially began after our tour guide just gave us a brief history about number 4, which is what I shared at the beginning of the vlog. Over here we were getting into all the communal cells, which is where there were quite a number of prisoners being held, and there was usually overcrowding in the communal cells because there was just a lot of people coming into the prison. Feel free to pause and read some of the history on what was happening here. Quite heartbreaking when you look at the treatment between the difference in the treatment between the black prisoners and the white prisoners. And so over here they created a sort of an exhibition where they were trying to recreate the experience, and walking in there, it felt so real. It felt like there were actually people sleeping there, and it's quite a good way to really pull us into what was happening at that time and represent it as best as possible. And this was their toilet area, and it was quite interesting to find out that within the communal cells, the prisoners would sleep in hierarchy, and those lowest in the hierarchy would sleep closer to the toilet. And because it was so overcrowded, they had to sleep in this way where some would sleep at the feet of the others, just so there's space to accommodate everyone. And this is where the Makuzus slept. So the big bosses, this is where they slept. And it was so sad to see that, they used so many blankets to create a comfortable space for themselves, while the others had to sleep on the rocky ground. But what can we say? Such is prison life, I guess. This section of the tour involved us getting into a room whereby some men who were in number 4 prison were, their story is being shared, and were just being asked to judge whether or not it was fair for these men to be kept here. And this is the original Jack Mabaso, guys, not the one from Generation. And then this is the legendary Mr. right next to Jack Mabaso, Mr. Robert Mangaliso Sobukwe. Yeah. On this part of the tour, this was the section where all the prisoners got their food. And on these placards, you can pause and just read through it. It's just some history on how the process worked and how they were fed, how much food they ate. It's really sad, like they hardly ate, honestly, and they would feed them like porridge just for the time when they need to go and labor. But other than that, it's pretty much as if they didn't eat, especially the black prisoners. And then you can just feel free to pause and just read what was happening. And something that I found quite sad is that they would eat from these were the utensils that they would use, and the reason you see the texture, and these is like the portions that they had. The reason there's that texture on that one is because the dishes weren't washed, guys, for like up to 3 months. Another thing is that this is where they ate. Like those are the toilets, and they ate like directly in front of the toilets, and the toilets are the long drops. So you can imagine the stench that they had to sit through as they ate. It was so unsanitary. And even on those boards, there's just stories of how people were constantly getting sick because of just how unsanitary the environment was. This is where they sat, and that is an exhibition. And then this is the board that describes the process of the Tausa, which is what they went through when they were out, and they had to search them that they didn't have any weapons or any drugs on them. And this area over here is where they took their showers, and it was so sad to find out that there was only 30 minutes given for the entire prison to shower. And it's just so sad, man. The things that these people went through. And those just placards are just describing the experience. This part of the tour was a more better part, because this is where they had, their recreation time in this space. They got a chance to, create some stuff. This is where they sang. This is where they danced and just got a chance to forget about the situation that they were in. They had a chance to create some art. Over here were some of the things that were used to punish the prisoners. If you can look at those weapons, yo. And as we were told, they would be beaten and tortured. And there would be a doctor just to confirm if they could take more beatings or not. So basically, they would be punished to the brink of death. Over here is the section where they had their isolation cells, and they're so tiny and so depressing, and they had the plugs or the switches for lights on the outside of the cell, and the lights were kept on just to disorient the prisoners and so that they can't keep up of what time of day it is and how many days they've been in there, basically driving them to insanity. And this was the torture cell where they would torture them. I just wanted to try and get in there just to get a feel of what it felt like. And at this point of the tour, I was already just so overwhelmed by all the pain these people went through. It just felt so real, being in there. On the next part of the tour, we went on the outside where the flame of democracy was burning. Unfortunately, I thought I caught a glimpse of it, but I didn't. And it was so beautiful, guys. And then we headed into the Constitutional Court. Over here, it has 26 of the Bill of Rights in vernacular language, English, as well as sign language on the door, and as well as braille on the handle of the door. And when we entered, our tour guide was just explaining how the design and model of it came about, how it was built to resemble a tree, because in our culture, that is where a lot of disputes were settled under the tree. So that it represents its transparency and justice in a way. So over at those benches, that's where the public sits if it is full inside the Constitutional Court. And this is the logo for the Constitutional Court, also the tree and people being able to witness justice being done. This is where the public sits when these cases that are, going on. And over there is where the judges sit, the Constitution, all the judges, all the important people. And these cow skins there, which have different patterns, just to show that each judge is different, and they should not be expected to judge in the same manner. Very cool. And that is a South African flag, which was like beaded, guys. Imagine, it's so beautiful. Like that whole thing was handmade with beads. And they were women, I think they said from KwaZulu-Natal or the Eastern Cape, I just can't remember clearly, who gave that as a gift to the Constitutional Court. And over there on the top is where the media then sits, because so that they can be able to cover everything that takes place inside of the court. After that, we then headed to the second part of the tour, where we went to the white male prison. And yeah, this is what it looks like, and it looks so pretty. It looks so pretty. It looks like a I can't even describe what it looks like. It's so white and, pure. Like, it doesn't look like a prison at all for me. It looks like, I don't know, a place of royalty or something. But anyway, it is what it is. And then, this was the old coat of arms. And that's where the prisoners would be delivered, basically, when they started to register and all of that. And then this was the side where the cells were. There was an event, I think, going on for children at the Constitutional Court, so that's why they had those playthings there. We started by going to the isolation cells, and they are not so isolated. Like, I feel like, there was just a sense of community there. And then this was where Mandela was held during the Rivonia trial. And it wasn't an actual cell, but it's where they had like their clinic section, so they just wanted to hold him away from the black prisoners because they felt that he had a lot of influence, and I guess maybe he was gonna cause them to be rowdy, and so they kept him away from the black prisoners. And over here there was a part where I actually saw like his actual journals, Mandela's actual journals, and some of the things that he wrote, some of the letters that he wrote to his family and his family wrote to him. And just, it was quite interesting. So this is where some of the white men who were in solidarity with black people during the apartheid times, who were also activists against the apartheid system. This is where most of them were held. And it was interesting to find out that there wasn't many prisoners here, so there wasn't as much like overcrowding like there was in the number 4 prison. We then went to the women's jail, and guys, it's tough out here. This is where most of the cells were like corrugated iron. They're like shacks, and they use the bucket system in there. So there would be a bucket to, take your dump, and then a bucket of water inside there. This is where some of the cells where they've been taken down now. But and then this explains how they would walk sometimes. And then that is the beautiful Albertina Sisulu. This was her cell. She's so beautiful. And this was some of the other cells of the women. This was this lady's wedding dress, and there's just a whole story about how when she got it, she never even had a chance to wear it, because then she was arrested. Nigiwe. There's even a woman who had a baby here, like literally raised their child here. And that is this lady. The story is over here. Asina, my bad. Asina Mnisi. She had her child and raised the child at the prison. And this was like the garden where they, used to chill and spend some time. This is where they kept the white lady prisoners, and I feel like it's so, like, the cells are so big and spacious. So that is one of the former prisoners just sharing her experience. And then there's this girl. When we talk about a baddie, we mean Daisy. This was the first lady to be sentenced to being hung. She killed her family, killed her husband, killed her kids, so that she could get money for inheritance. So that was the first girl to do that. And over here is just the many things that used to be happening here, some of the uniforms, how they were dressed and why, just the explanations as to why. Feel free to just pause and get the stories as to what was happening. And some of the most touching things about the women's prison, I think, was the situation with when the women went to their menstrual cycle and underwear. At some stage, they weren't allowed to wear underwear, guys. Imagine. Until a time where that was questioned, spoken about. And then they were finally allowed to wear underwear, and you'll just see what the underwear looked like. It was also interesting to see the dompas that our parents always tell us about. So I appreciated being able to see what it actually looks like, and it's quite massive. But it's really not that different from the green passbook that we have now. But yeah, it was quite huge. It was like a whole book. I think this is okay. We are getting to the underwear placard and the menstrual cycle pad. So yeah, these are the underwears that they were finally allowed to get. But yeah, at first they weren't allowed to wear underwear. You can just read the reasons as to why. And then this is the section with the sanitary pads, which is just so sad, because also they washed these, and you literally had to show them that you were on your period. And that brings us to the end of our vlog, y'all. I hope that you enjoyed it, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Bye. Spread love, light, and positivity.